afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening or in the morning, as I said, wherever you happen to be in the world. It's absolutely our pleasure to be talking to you about our brand new product, the OM3, which has been something that we've been looking forward to for a really, really long time. But also what's really exciting is that we've got some other things to talk to you about this evening as well. We've got 3 brand new lenses as well. So we've got a 17mm f1.8 Mark II, a 25mm f1.8 Mark II, and also the 100 to 400mm f1.2 Mark II, I should say. So really, really excited to be sharing all of that with you guys. If you do have any questions, then please, by all means, pop them into the comments as we go along. I've got Stephen here with me who's going to be managing comments for me this evening. But otherwise, really excited to be talking to you all about this fantastic new product. Now, I've got some slides that I want to take everybody through because I've been watching intently with the other sessions that the other guys are doing. I wanted to do something, I suppose, that was a little bit more about what you're actually going to do in the camera, because the guys in the UK and also the guys from America did a fantastic job because they had visionaries on board to be able to share their experiences and talk about the beautiful images that they are able to capture. So I've got some images here as well that I want to share with you, but I've actually got a camera hooked up that I'm going to show you as we go along, just so you can actually see what's happening in the camera and you can sort of get I suppose a real-time idea of what you're actually going to see and feel once you're actually experiencing the camera. So, all right, Kev, I recognize Kev. Kev, good evening. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so as I said, guys, if you've got any questions, then please feel free to pop them into the chat as we go along, because my lovely assistant, Stephen, is going to be answering all your questions as we go along. But what we like to do is if there's something that lots of people are asking about, then we'll pop the comment up so everybody can see what we're talking about or what the question is. So that way we can understand what we're talking about and we can go even deeper again. So let's get started, folks, because, again, we want to talk about this fantastic new camera. So the OM3, so a fantastic new camera for us because it really, I suppose, moves into a new generational gap for us compared to what we've done with our previous OMSYSTEM.Cameras. So the question that I did see a lot was, so where does this sort of camera fit in with the current lineup? So this actually sits in between the OM5 and the OM1 Mark II. And the reason for that is that, again, it's completely new. The design's completely new. The way that you interact with the camera is completely new. But what we're really excited about is that it's actually taking a lot of the heart and soul and performance from the OM1 Mark II. So the fantastic thing about that is that if you want something that's a slightly smaller form factor, as well as all the creative features that we're going to talk about at length this evening, then this is definitely the camera for you, because you're not sacrificing frame rates, you're not sacrificing speed of autofocus or performance. All of that has been taken from the OM1 Mark II, but again, completely different package, but a completely different user experience. This is something that is going to be designed for you creative people. The people that like to get something straight out of the camera. You don't want to have to sit in post-production for hours and hours, like I'm sure lots of us have all done before. The things that you can do creatively in this camera really do take your photography to another level. So that's why we're so excited about it. But again, it's a slightly different direction for us as well, because we've been so, I suppose, focused on high-speed shooting and sport, wildlife and outdoor shooting. And this is no different, because this actually still takes that IP53 weather sealing rating that we have for our other cameras in the OM range. But again, it's all about the way that you, the photographer, are going to interact with this camera to get things that you, again, probably haven't even seen or been able to achieve in camera before. So let's get into it, guys, because a little bit about the sort of background and the direction of the way that we actually brought this camera to life, because it's been a long time since we've sort of first moved into micro four thirds and into the digital space. And one thing that hasn't changed for us is that direction to be making sure that we're staying lightweight, but still delivering exceptional image quality. Now, a lot of that is obviously down to the camera body, but I think all of you that have had good lenses or currently have some of our great lenses know that your image quality all starts with your lens. So we need to make sure that we're not only packaging the body a lot smaller, but also our lenses a lot smaller as well. And I've actually got both of the two 1.8s that I can hold up and show to you a little bit later when I go full screen, because you'll be able to see them a little bit better that way. But what's brilliant about them is the metal finish on them is really, really nice, but they're still small, they're still compact, but they're still uber sharp, which if any of you guys out there have got the original versions, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those of you who have been sort of part of the family or part of the OM system world for us for the last few years, you've probably seen this statement or this Japanese philosophy that we follow internally, which is called kacho fugetsu, which is basically engaging with your outdoors and experiencing the outdoors, and also how we fit within that environment as well. And one thing that's a little bit different about this camera is that it's not sort of about only spending time in really sort of rugged outdoor conditions. This is about spending time in urban environments, but still having all of the weather sealing and all of the tough support in the background to make sure that even if you do get sort of caught in a challenging condition, the camera is still going to be able to be that perfect companion for you no matter where you happen to go. But it's also about story creation as well, because we want people to be able to create things that are completely unique to them as a photographer. And that's, again, where a lot of the creativity or the built-in creativity with this camera lies. So very much focused on, again, urban and natural landscape photography, but also that whole creative stream that we want our customers and our users to be able to unlock with this new camera. So, okay, a couple of questions, a couple of quick comments here. Hello from everybody. Hello, hello, hello. So good evening. Don't worry, lots of plans to take this camera and lenses around the country. Yeah, well, hopefully. Well, actually, no, not hopefully. Absolutely, yes, we are. We're going to be doing lots of, in Australia, we're going to be doing lots of interstate road shows. We'll be doing in-person events all over the next coming months, guys. And for those of you who, and again, I don't get to see where you folks sort of picked up the live stream from, or where you registered for it, or where you logged onto it from. But I'll get Stephen to share, and I think he's already prepared something for us, is just a little note that we're going to put into the comments a little bit later about all of our upcoming live stream events and all of our online events. But on that list, it actually gives you all of the physical events that we've got coming up as well. So that's not just for Australia and New Zealand. That's actually for everywhere that's happening in the world. So a few years ago, we actually centralized all of that. So it's really simple for everybody to find what they're looking for. You just filter by the language that you're looking for and check out what events we've got coming up, because I know there's already been lots of stuff that's been posted by the guys in Europe and America about road shows that they're doing with some of their retail partners around the places, so you can actually get hands-on with it. And in Australia, we're actually holding 2 OM System Days. So one in Sydney coming up in a couple of weeks, and then, or next weekend, I should say, and then another one a couple of weeks after that in Melbourne. But we'll be looking to expand on that as well. That was just our starting point. So quick note here. So do you feel that everything easy, reduce the demand for professional photography and devalue? Sorry, I'll just reread that again. Don't you feel that you're making everything easy on point with other systems? Okay, well, I suppose not everybody's at the same level, and I guess the advantage of a tool like this camera is going to be able to take your creative juices to another level if you're already a very accomplished photographer. How about let's go through some of the things that the camera can do, and then maybe we can expand on that conversation a little bit further, if that's okay. So, hello from Townsville, Teresa. G'day. Welcome. Okay, so guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down into 4 little categories of what we're going to talk about with the new camera. So, starting with creativity, and then our new computational modes and the way that we interact with the camera, because this has completely changed compared to our previous generation cameras. Image quality, and of course reliability. So all of these things packaging together to create this beautiful camera for us. So let's get started, guys. As I said, we're going to begin with creativity, because this is a real cornerstone of what this camera is going to be able to do for you. So, as no doubt, if you've been following the teasers, or if you've watched any of the other information that's come out from the team around the world already, you will have noticed that we've brought back the creative dial. So for those of you who have been, again, part of the Olympus family or OM System family for the last few years, you may be familiar with a previous generation camera that we released called the Pen F. Now, that was in a similar sort of vein, where it was actually based on a half-frame film camera from many, many years ago. The design concept, again, was kind of similar, but it was the first first camera that we produced that had this creative dial on the front of it. And the reason why people loved it was because it was quick and easy to be able to interact with all of these, not just color profiles, but monochrome profiles, your art filters, as well as a color control wheel as well. So I'm going to be showing you all of this as we go along, so you don't have to remember all of this. But I guess the whole point of putting this creative dial on the camera is that you, the photographer, can quickly and easily interact with the camera, making these changes on the fly so you can see exactly what you want and you see it in real time. And you also deliver that image to yourself immediately as well. So it's not something that's only going to provide an overlay and then you've got to fix it later in post or apply that to your raw file after the fact. It's all in the camera right there in front of you, ready to share or do whatever you want to do with it straight away. Okay, so let's get into this. So starting with color profiles. So again, you've got 4 starting point, I suppose is the best way to look at it, color profiles, but then full control with 12 different color controls and other adjustments that you can make for each one of those individual profiles as well. So again, really, really high on the, I suppose, the flexibility that this gives you to create your own colors. So quick look at what these actually look like. So you've got your standard color, which again, if you've used an Olympus or an OMSYSTEM camera, you'll be familiar with what our natural profile looks like. Natural is quite natural, I think. But again, you've got control to be able to make that change later on. But then you've got color profile number 2, which is very similar to a chrome rich film color. So you can actually see, and again, I've got lots of examples as we go along, but you can see how the richness that it adds to those colors. And again, just remember, that's just a starting point. Same with color 3. So that's a little bit more like a chrome film vivid. And then you've got the chrome film soft tone, which is a little bit lower in contrast, a little bit softer across the board. But again, these are just starting points, and I keep harping on about that. That's the important part, is that because this is only a starting point, the level that you can take this is completely up to you, but also up to the scenario that you're shooting in as well. So some people will sort of have a set and forget sort of thing. They'll create a profile that they love and they can just shoot to their heart's content within that profile. But what's brilliant about these is that once you've created that profile, you can still evolve with it, and you can also change it in real time based on what your environment or what your requirement or what your vision is for that particular moment as well. So what I'm going to do is, just so you can sort of see how we're interacting with this, is I'm just going to cut over to the camera that I've got here. So there we go. Cool. Okay. Now, as I said, on that creative dial on the front of the camera, I can clip over to the left-hand side here, and I can go into my color profiles. Now, once you've made that switch on the dial, it'll change into there, but to access that color profile again and all the things that you can change, all you've got to do is press the OK button on the back of the camera, and you can see on our super control panel menu here, it comes up with color number 1 because that's the one that I chose. But we can actually quickly change from one profile to the other simply by going back up to the top of those options. And then you've got all 4 of those baseline color profiles in there. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do all 4 of these because what you can change is identical in each of them. But starting with that baseline color profile, from there, you can actually control the vividness and also the individual color band as you go along. And you do this with your front and rear control wheels. So with my front control wheel, I can go from one color band to the other. And then with my rear control wheel, where my thumb sits on the back of the camera, I can over and under saturate based on what my requirement is. Okay. And I can do that for every individual color throughout the spectrum that's visible here. From there, we can also change our shadows, our highlights, and our midtones as well. Now, the way that you do that, again, is with your front and rear control wheels. So if I roll my front control wheel while I'm in my shadow and highlight control, right now I'm on midtone, so you can see that it's controlling that entire curve line there. Whereas if I press the info button, I can use my front and rear control dials in order to control my shadows and my highlights. Okay, so you've got seven positions on either side, so you can go 7+ or 7-. So there's actually quite a lot that you can do with this. But again, controlling your curves is something that a lot of people will spend a lot of time on in post-production. So to be able to do this in camera and again see what that change is going to do for you in real time is good fun. From there, you've also got shading effects. So for here, you've actually got, and it won't show it in black because I've obviously got my lens cap on here so everybody can see what I'm doing. But if I roll it to the right-hand side here, you've actually got a white shading effect, or a white vignette is probably the more appropriate word. So and again, you can control that in either black or white, or the intensity of it as you roll to the left and the right there. From there, you've got sharpness and contrast control as well. Now, that is a little bit different compared to the controls that you have when we're shooting in monochrome. Okay, so you do actually get some extra things when you go into black and white. So but all of these individual things, again, you can see the level of control that you've got, and across all of those 4 profiles as well. It just lets you take that take those images to another level based on what your requirement is in that particular moment, or a look or feel that you like to shoot in all of the time. Okay, so really quick and really easy. So I'll pop that back up on there. There we go. Okay. So that's our color wheels and our 4 baseline profiles. So here I've got a couple of example shots of sort of desaturating as well as undersaturating as well, or oversaturating as well. But again, it's all based on what the vision or what the requirement was for that particular moment. So here we can see there's been a little bit of desaturation in there to soften those colors within the reflection. Here you can see that there's been a little bit of softening through that golden hue. You can imagine that would have been much stronger and much warmer, I suppose, sort of tone without that desaturation. And then same with this image here. So what they've really done is desaturated the warmth of where the sun's coming through the clouds, but what they've also done is make some tweaks to the blues as well, so we can sort of soften but also enhance the detail and the tonality of the blue water or the graying of the water across the bottom there. But then we go to the other extreme. So here we've got somebody who wanted to enhance that warmth within the shot by bumping up that color saturation also within that color band. So again, guys, the things that you can do with this is going to be so much fun. We can't wait for you guys to actually get out there and start experiencing with it, and also sharing your images with us as well, because that's a big part of what we like to do. We love to have people sort of share the images that we're taking, or that they're taking, because it's inspirational to other people, especially if you're either new to photography or you're new to digital photography as well. I'm not sure where it's up to with other countries, but in Australia and New Zealand, there's been a huge resurgence in film, and there are particular looks and feels that people will shoot different types of films specifically for. So what's awesome about this is that you can sort of create those looks and feels like you would do in post-production, but again, you can do it all in camera and see what it looks like in real time. Okay, so then also I wanted to do a quick side-by-side comparison with these 2 shots here as well, because again, I think it's a good sort of vein to follow as to taking exactly the same image, or the exact same location, I should say, but completely changing the look and feel of it by adjusting that saturation, as well as adjusting your tonal curves as well. So here we can see where they've really softened the saturation. We've brought that vividness right down, and also taken some of the contrast out. Whereas if we go to the other extreme, where we're really pushing that vivid color and we're also pushing the contrast, it completely changes the look and feel of the shot. But the brilliant thing is there's no right or wrong. It's entirely up to you, the photographer, as to what you want that particular scene to look like, or what you like your scenes to look like, if you are going to dial in these color profiles and use them, or set them and then leave them as they are, or they can be a completely fluid process for you as well. Okay. Next, black and white, exactly the same sort of process. So again, on that front control wheel, we're going to click that over to our monochrome profiles, and I'll cut over to my camera here so you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. Okay, so again, we've got those 4 baseline profiles that we talked about, starting with number 1 and then rolling across to the 4 across to the right here. But here you've actually got an individual color filter that you can use, as well as our tonal curves, as we talked about. We can still put that shading or that vignetting in there. We can control sharpness and contrast. But what we can also control, and this is exclusive to black and white, is a grain effect. So if we want to add that grain film style simulation to it, you've actually got multiple levels that you can choose from based on, again, the look and feel or the texture that you want to apply to the image. But then on top of that, you've also got monochrome color filters as well. So you've got a sepia, you've got a blue, you've got a purple, and you've got a green as well. So again, create unique looks and feels based on what your personal preferences are, or change it based on what that individual scene is going to be appropriate for. So cool. So again, that's some basics on the controls, guys. We're going to be doing lots more work on these sort of over the next couple of months, based on what you guys want to hear, and also what it's very much about once everybody gets camera in hand and the sorts of things that they're looking to do as well. So cool. So that's our black and white profiles. That's actually what they look like as a baseline. So similar to our color profile. So you've got a standard monotone, which again, out of our cameras, I've always liked, but again, I look at it all day, every day. So it's a little bit, I suppose, tainted because I always look at it that way. But one thing that I have been doing some quick shooting with, because I haven't had my sample for that long, is the classic film black and white looks really, really nice. The classic film infrared is also very nice as well. And again, no right or wrong, folks. This is entirely your personal preference or what you the look and feel that you're going for in that particular moment. But I've got, again, some example shots here as well. So some beautiful creamy black and white. Again, some quite high contrast within this one. Same with this one. The blacks look really slick, especially once you start playing with those tonal curves. Here you can see where they've actually added some of that grain into the shot here as well, because again, it gives it a little bit more of a film authentic look, I suppose. And then I've got some of my little monkey Moo here as well. So I've shot him in all 4 different profiles where you probably can't see them all that differently from the first one up into the last one, which is the infrared. So again, really, really nice, super, super clean. And these are shot with the 25mm 1.8 as well, which is really nice to use too. So, but adjusting the color profile. So again, I've already sort of shown you what you can do in here, but you've got those 4 presets as we talked about. From there, you can control your color saturation, your tonal curves with your shadows, highlights, and midtones, your shading effects, as we talked about, sharpness and contrast. So those are all the things that you can change in the color profiles. But as I mentioned, in the monochrome profiles, there is some extra stuff in there as well. So you've got the tone effect as well as the film grain effect that you can add in there as well. Okay, cool. Cool. All right. So just checking to see if any comments have been done. Stephen's doing a fantastic job there. Stephen, thank you very much. Cool. So again, quick little example of what we're talking about and how you can quickly manipulate an image to give yourself your own unique look. So we're starting here with the original image, which was just on the standard color profile. From there, we can adjust or oversaturate our blues and our purple color band and cyan. And what that's actually done is not only changed our background, but it's also given our subject a little bit more of a silvery finish as well. So again, quick and easy to do, but it's also completely unique to that situation. So really, really good fun. Quick comment that I just saw here, guys. Is there going to be a black? At this stage, I don't believe so. So the silver with a black grip is what's going to be available. I don't believe there's a short-term plan for a black. However, as I said, I watched the other sessions last night and this morning, and lots of people have been asking for a black one. So, hey, you never say never. But to answer your question in the short term, I really don't think there's plans for that at this particular moment. So, there you go. Stephen's just answered that for me as well. Cool. Okay, so again, same sort of process when we're shooting our black and whites, guys. So we start with our baseline monochrome profile. From there, we can apply a filter if we want to, and then we've got our grain effects and everything in there as well, which is really, really cool. So shadow and highlight control. If you haven't seen that before, I don't know if there's actually a lot of cameras out there that give you that level of control. But your shadows and highlight control is, again, exactly what you do with your tonal curves in post-production. So you can either enhance or unenhance or bring down your highlights and or shadows. But if you do push them up in both directions, so to +7 and -7, you're actually going to create bigger contrast within that frame. And again, that you can do that in both your color profiles as well as your black and white. I found that we actually probably get the most positive reaction out of this in the monochrome profile so far, but again, I haven't shot a lot of color with it. But generally, in my post-production for my raw files, I wouldn't do a huge amount of contrast adding. I think our lenses do a pretty good job of maintaining contrast, but also it comes down to a personal preference. There's no right or wrong in there as well. Okay. Cool. And then finally, our color creator wheel. So this, again, lets us go through each individual color band and overall undersaturate the entire frame based on what our requirement is. And that is all the way down to the left-hand side. So the final click on that creative dial on the front of the camera. Okay, so that's the creative wheel. But also, one thing that the engineers did a really, really good job of with this camera is streamlining the way that we interact with it. not just for somebody who's already again been part of our family, but also for somebody who is jumping in particular from another brand, or they haven't even picked up a digital camera before. This control wheel or separate mode dial, I suppose, on the left-hand side of the top of the camera is broken down into 3 categories. So you've got your still shooting, again, self-explanatory, your video, and then finally your slow and quick motion, or that's what that S and Q stands for. So I'm going to go through all of these individually, but what I love about this is that you can make a very quick and easy choice based on what you want to do in that particular moment with a single click of your wheel. Once you go into your slow and quick motion, obviously you need to customize your playback frame rates and that sort of thing. That's exactly why that exists. But again, really quick and really easy to do. Same as with the computational mode button we're going to talk about in a second. They actually had a really good think about, we've got all of these great features. We don't, and because of the smaller body size compared to the OM1 Mark II, there's not a lot of function buttons on it by comparison. So to be able to streamline all of these things without having to go sort of deep diving or going from one end of the menu to the other, they're now all housed under one singular button. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in real time with my connected camera as well. Okay. Cool. But again, slow and quick motion quickly on this. Obviously that's, well, hopefully that's fairly self-explanatory. It's where we're controlling slow motion and fast motion. You've got a huge level of control of your frame rates playback to enhance that slow or fast motion. So again, really quick and really easy. But for those of you who love shooting video or sort of semi-new to video, and you're not, I suppose, up on your color grading skills or your post-production skills when it comes to video, really excited about these 2 new cinema profiles that we've got for video. So we've got some little examples here, and these were chosen just so you can see what sort of happens to your greens and to your backgrounds. But these are absolutely beautiful, and they're straight out of camera. So you don't need to do any fiddling in post-production if you don't want to. Obviously, you have the ability to do that if you want to, but the whole concept behind creating beautiful things in camera was why these 2 cinema profiles were created. So really, really nice. And again, you've literally just got to select the one that is most purposeful for you in that particular moment. Okay, cool. All right, so that's our creative dial and the creativity modes built into the camera, guys. Let's move on to our computational modes. So when it comes to our computational modes, and again, if you're new to our system and you haven't sort of, or you're not familiar with what our computational modes are, these have been in development with us as a brand for quite a few years, and we continue to sort of, I suppose, lead the market as far as an innovation type goes, because there's still some unique technology that we have in our cameras that doesn't exist in any other brand. So because we've got all of these things in here, like I mentioned before, the engineers sort of had to think and went, we've got all these really cool things that we want people to have quick and easy access to. How are we going to do that? So that's exactly why this CP or computational button was born. So once I've actually been through each of these individually, I'll show you what this actually looks like in camera so you can get a better idea of what it actually looks like when you're using it. But talking about the things that are built into the camera, so live neutral density filter, again, some of you may or may not have seen that. I've got a little demo video on that. Live graduated neutral density filter, so you can actually filter for a part of the frame and not the entire frame. Again, there's only one other camera in the world that can do this right now, and that's the OM1 Mark II. Then you've got high-res shot, so the baseline resolution from the sensor is 20 megapixels. But if you turn it into one of the 2 high-res shot modes, you're actually going to get either an 80 megapixel RAW file when you shoot it in tripod mode, or a 50 megapixel RAW file when you shoot it by hand. Again, really, really, really quick and easy to do. And because the camera composites all of those images into a singular file for you in camera, and it does it for you in real time, you've got that result straight away, which again is the whole point of why you want to capture better resolution shots. But there's actually a little bit more to it than that, which I'll go into a little bit later on. So HDR, so high dynamic range shooting, so where you're actually taking multiple shots and then the camera's stacking them together for you. So you're actually getting the most amount of information in your shadows and highlights. So really good for high contrast scenes. Again, something that a lot of pure landscape photographers would use. Not so much in the self-writing mode, which is HDR. They probably do more of an exposure bracket, and then they take those individual images and put them together later on. You can do both of those things, by the way. But again, this is all about streamlining that function in the camera. So HDR is in here as well. Same with focus stacking. So focus stacking, I know personally, I got hung up on focus stacking as being really only ever focused on macro photography. And don't get me wrong, it's sensational for that. But one of the brilliant things about focus stacking is that it's actually a lot more flexible outside of macro photography. It's a brilliant thing to use for landscape photography as well, which you sort of think there's no real connection in between those two genres. But when you're taking lots of different images and getting the absolute sweet spot out of your lens, but then guaranteeing yourself that depth of field that you need within a larger scene, that's exactly what focus stacking can do for you. So you can actually stack up to 15 frames within camera, but then you can also do focus bracketing, which is something completely different to what you see in the computational button mode. That's where you can take a bracket of up to 999 raw files, and then the photographer, needs to take those images into a program and then stack them together after the fact. So that's that. And then obviously multi-exposure as well, where you can overlay images on top of each other too. So let's get into it, guys. So again, starting with the live graduated neutral density filter. So you can see a little example in the GIF that I've got here. The brilliant thing about this is that it's taken the concept of live ND, where it basically creates a digital filter for you by breaking the exposure down into smaller increments. It's doing all of that, but then you're actually controlling the segment of the frame that you want to be filtered, and then therefore what you don't want to be filtered. And you've got complete control over wherever this is positioned within the frame. But that's only part of it. On top of that, you've actually got control over the way that line is going to transition. And what I mean by that is that you've got a soft, medium, and hard setting. So if you want that line to very gradually transition between filtered and unfiltered, you'd use soft. If you want it to be a little bit shorter, then you'd use medium. Whereas if you've got a hard horizon line, you'd use the hard. So it'll be just filtered from one side of the line and then not filtered on the other. Okay. But then on top of that, you've got 3 levels of filter as well. So you've got 1, 2, and 3 stops. So G and D, 2, 4, and 8, which is absolutely brilliant. But because again, you're seeing all of this in real time. So you know exactly where you're filtering because you're positioning that line within the frame wherever you want to put it. And you actually do it with your front and rear control wheels. So you control the tilt, you use your arrow keys to move the pivot point around within the screen. A couple of questions that we get on this is, can you filter for the entire frame? Absolutely yes. Or can you flip it 180 degrees? So you instead of filtering for your sky, you're actually filtering for your ground and then leaving the sky. Absolutely yes, you can. You've got total control over wherever you position that filtered area within the frame. So really, really exciting for those of you who haven't seen that before. And you're going to see more and more of us talking about this because this is only the second camera in the world that's had the potential to be able to do this. Okay, cool. Next, live neutral density filter. So again, I'll put together a little video so you can actually see what this is doing in real time in camera. A couple of things that you need to know about the way that this works, though, is that with live neutral density filter, the camera requires you, the photographer, to be in control of your shutter speed or your time interval, your shutter interval. So a mistake that I see, or not a mistake, I shouldn't call it that, so, something that people might not be aware of when they first get their camera and they start using this is that they might, predominantly shoot in aperture priority. You actually need to change the mode dial into shutter priority or into manual in order to be able to control live ND, because the camera is expecting you again to control that shutter speed, which you can only do in shutter priority or in manual priority. Okay. But it still delivers you a singular raw image at the end of this process. Okay. I'm not going to go into all the technical whiz bang of how this actually happens. But in a nutshell, basically it's taking whatever exposure time you set and then breaking it down into smaller increments. So that's how it's controlling the ambient light within the frame. But it's also, that's only half of it. The live component to this is it actually showing you what that looks like in real time before you capture. So it streamlines your shooting process as well as lets you control that level of ambient light. Now, another question that we get on this a lot is, can I use this with a physical ND filter? And the answer is absolutely yes. Because if you do use a physical filter, really all you're doing is stopping light coming into your camera, so therefore providing your camera a longer exposure time. So, but let's actually have a look at what this looks like in real time. Excuse me. So what I'd mainly like you to pay attention to is the waterfall in the back and also the water breaking on the rocks to the left-hand side and also the bottom of the right-hand side. As we go up through each level of filter, you'll actually see the sensation of movement within the frame change. So right now we're at 2 stops, and then we'll click into 3 stops, so ND8. And you can already start to see the change in there. But what you'll also notice is that your shutter speed at the bottom of the screen is changing. So every level of filter that you go up, it's going to drop the shutter speed down to go for a longer period of time. But that's okay, because again, we're still controlling the light like we need to. You still have ISO control, and you still have aperture control. So you can still create or change that baseline baseline exposure. But again, you create that sensation of movement within the frame, which is what you can see here. So again, pretty incredible that you can do all of this in camera. And I've got some beautiful example shots of this as well. So these guys, I think, are all taken from our Tokyo team. So again, that last one on the island, again, you need to see this in full size. You can see the real softening and ethereal look that slowing down to that shutter speed gives you, while everything that's stationary is obviously not moving. Traditional waterfalls and even sort of man-made water passageways are always really nice, but really you start to see the most out of these once you get out into nature and again create that sensation of movement amongst nature. It looks really, really, really nice. Okay. Cool. Okay, next, high resolution shot. So high resolution shot is one of the other things that you can do with this CP button, or the computational button. As I mentioned before, there's actually 2 modes to this. So you've got a tripod mode, which will give you an 80 megapixel raw file, and that shifts in a linear fashion, I should say. It actually shifts the sensor half a pixel width 8 times and then overlays it all into that final image. Whereas when you do it by hand, it'll take up to 12 shots, and then actually very clever the way it does it. It takes any sort of micro movement from the camera to differentiate each of the individual frames, and then it sticks them together to give you that final shot. But the resolution is only part of it. You actually get a better, more malleable file to be able to work with. So broader dynamic range, better noise suppression, and better color information as well, because with the OM3, you actually get the potential to shoot in the 14-bit RAW file with our high-res shot as well. So again, expands that color gamut and tonality. You get a better file to be able to work with after the fact. Okay. Next, multi-exposure. As I mentioned before, you can actually overlay a couple of overlaying a couple of different images on top of each other, again purely for creative purposes, but then you've on top of that got your focus stacking to create better depth of field. So as I mentioned before, it is a technology that we've had for a very long time. So stacking and bracketing in camera we've had for many years, but it isn't just limited to macro photography. Again, it's fantastic to use with macro photography. It's one of the reasons why lots of our users actually shoot with our system predominantly for macro photography, because of the feature set that we have and the advantages that we have. But again, don't pigeonhole it. Don't just think it is purely only for macro photography. Okay. So quickly, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut over to my camera again so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, am I still in a color profile? Yep, I'm still in mono, so I'll pop that back out there. Okay, so what you've got on screen here, guys, is basically your starting point, or your basic information screen. So that'll the shooting mode will obviously change based on what you put your mode dial set to. So I'm currently set to manual. But what I'm going to do is press that CP button that's on the back of the camera just to the right-hand side of the EVF, and I'm going to roll my front control wheel with my index finger. And from there, I can quickly and easily jump from one setting to the next. I can go all the way back to the left if I really want to. It's really quick and really easy to manipulate. So I can turn on that live ND. You'll see that it's active in the top left-hand corner there. But then if I've tapped that CP button, I'm back to regular shooting again. Okay, so whatever selection I've saved will be recalled by pressing that button. But if I want to make a change to that, or even if I just want to change the level of filter, all I've got to do is press and hold that same button, and then roll it back across to the left-hand side there, and it's going to go back to live ND 64 or whatever it happens to be. Okay, so really quick and really easy. And again, it's ease of function and ease of interaction is what we've really targeted with this camera, and I think they've done a really good job with that. Okay, all right. Next, I don't have a great deal of slides on live composite and live time, mainly because we are going to be doing separate sessions on these functions, but it isn't a function that we've had in our system for a very long time. If you're not familiar with what live composite and live time are, I'll give you a quick summary, but it's actually a very deep rabbit hole you can go down with both of these things. So quickly with live time, the brilliant thing about live time is that it's like shooting bulbs, so it's untimed exposure, but you get to watch the exposure develop in real time. So for those of you who have shot bulb before, you'll know that it can be challenging because every condition is different, and also because your viewfinder is blacked out while you're actually performing the shutter function. You don't know whether you're going to leave the shutter open for too long and overexpose, or you haven't left it long enough and you haven't captured enough light. That's where live time comes in. So you can actually start the exposure, let the exposure develop to the point where you want, and then you can stop. And you know you're going to nail the shot every time. Now, live composite is probably more for moving light. And what I mean by moving light is from very fast to very slow. So things like lightning, fireworks, traffic trails, light painting, all that sort of thing, all the way out to star trails. But you've got all of these controls in your camera in order for you to, I suppose, customize your setup based on what your shooting environment is, and again, what the subject that you're trying to capture. But it actually shows you all of this develop in real time on your LCD screen or in your viewfinder as well. So incredible technology. If you haven't experienced this before, look out for some of our future sessions, because you're going to see more and more that is specific to this. Because as I mentioned, we've had this technology for a really long time, but I think we probably need to start making a little bit more noise about it again, because from a creativity point of view, there is nothing else out there like this. And also the way that you interact with it makes it super, super easy as well. Okay. So now performance levels. So AI subject detection, I was really, really pleased to see that we maintained all of this level of performance with the OM3. So all of the subject detection autofocus modes are still here. So humans, birds, animals, trains, cars, and aeroplanes, mainly because we're actually using the sensor from the OM1 Mark II, and also the same processing engine as well, which also means that we're not sacrificing frame rates. So we've seen that before, where once you make a model change and that sort of thing, there's certain things that a processor can and can't do. With this TruePic 10 processor out of the OM1 and the OM1 Mark II, the things that this can do are incredible. So I'm very, very pleased that to see that they've given us full potential out of this, even though there's obviously some slight design changes within the body and that sort of thing as well. But that stack BSI sensor is amazingly good for low light photography. It's got a native range between 200 and 25,600 ISO as well. And what I found is that I'll set my auto range and my ISO to 20,000. But also, I know that if I need to push the ISO up a little bit, all I've got to do is slightly overexpose, and I know I'm going to be able to clean up all of that noise if I need to, because the actual noise pattern and profile out of the sensor is completely different to anything that we've had with previous generation cameras. So think M1 Mark II, 3, X, all that sort of thing. But also 1,053 individual autofocus points as well. So you can finitely control your focus and still at the same speed that you would expect as well. Quick couple of notes here that I can see, guys. So I'm just going to answer these while I've got them in front of me. So Y&D filter cannot be used in video, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. So no, you are not misunderstanding. You can't use it in video. The main reason for it is that every single individual frame that the camera is capturing is being broken down into smaller increments. So the amount of processing work that we need to do that at 60 frames a second just means that it's not possible to be able to do. Okay. But that's also the live component to it as well, is that it's not only performing the function, it's actually showing you what it's doing in real time as well. So it's not like controlling the voltage to your sensor in order to simulate or either stimulate or hamstring its sensitivity. And it's not the same as using a drop-in or an ND cover that's either slid into the lens or slid over the front of the sensor either. It's all been done completely digitally. So hopefully that answers that. Also, can you use the G&D filter in live comp at this, or live time simultaneously? No, Jenny, they're set individually. So one thing that I didn't mention before, though, when we're talking about the color profiles, is that you can still use all of those color profiles that we talked about with the creative dial in live ND, live graduated neutral density filter, high res shot, and all that sort of thing as well. So mainly the reason why, Jenny, you can't do those is that the individual processes are a little bit different, so they can't overlap over each other. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so that is image quality. As I mentioned, guys, no no hamstringing when it comes to frame rates here as well. So you're looking at 120 frames per second with focus lock, or 50 frames continuous focus, and still with pro capture mode and all the bells and whistles that you will have seen with the R1 and the R1 Mark II. And mainly that focusing performance comes from that cross quad pixel autofocus system with that stack sensor that we talked about. Quick one here from Rick. So what aspect ratios are on this camera other than 4:3? So let me see. So 4:3, 3:2, 16:9, 1:1, and 3:4. I'm pretty sure are all of those, Rick, but I can actually cut over to my camera at the end and we'll be able to double check those, but I'm pretty sure those are all the ones that I just mentioned. Image stabilization. So let's quickly talk about this, because this is, again, a cornerstone of what we've been doing as a brand for many, many years. We do hold ourselves to a very, very high standard, and this camera is no different. So you're looking at IS sync up to 7.5 stops, but you've got 6.5 stops of IBIS built into the camera. For those of you who haven't used one of our modern cameras with the way that they stabilize, it's almost impossible to go back to shooting with something without this level of stabilization, especially when you're shooting with big tele lenses, because the higher the magnification or the longer the focal length, the harder it is to stabilize. So with our synced IS lenses, which we're going to talk about in a second with the 100 to 400 mil, because that sync works with the in-lens stabilizer talking in real time to the in-sensor stabilizer, just means you can do more, especially at those longer focal lengths as well. Okay. So that's our image quality. And now let's quickly talk about reliability as well. So for Maryland, I do like the OM3 has the same processor and sensor from the OM1. Absolutely, Mayland. It's important that I think for a camera of this level and of this standard to be given the best. And that's exactly what it's got. So again, we were really, really impressed to see that all of that high-level performance is all still being packed into this smaller body. So really, really excited about that, and I'm very glad to see that you are too. Okay, reliability, guys. So again, we've very much been a market leader when it comes to our weather resistance for both our bodies and our lenses. To my knowledge, and I'm happy to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure that the IP53 standard for interchangeable lens cameras is still exclusive to us as a brand. But there have been obviously some model releases come out recently, so I'm happy to be corrected on that. But basically all that means, guys, is that IP rating stands for ingress protection. So then you've got two numbers. So you've got dust, and then you've got water there as well. So the cameras aren't submergible, but the amount of rain that you can put these cameras into without any issue is pretty incredible. And also to guarantee that level of standard, they actually test them very rigorously. And we've actually had some pretty cool videos over the past of some of the internal testing they do. Well, they'll sit the camera in the middle of a water jet jig, and the jig will basically just go over and back, over and back, over and back with lens. And obviously that's how they achieve the standard that they do. But dust proofing and splash proofing and freeze proofing, again, all from what you would expect, as well as that metal body as well. The finish and feel on this is really, really super premium, and all still under 500 grams. So I think the official weight with SD card and battery is 496 grams. I'm pretty sure off the top of my head. XC photography, why not look after your loyal users with updates? Let's address that, because there are certain things that you can and can't do when it comes to firmware updates. And I think this is unfortunately a common misconception with people, that you can just reinvent a new camera by putting firmware onto it. But the fact of the matter is that if the processing power isn't there, you can't perform the functions that they do. And even if you did, even if you tried, it just wouldn't be able to perform at 100%, or wouldn't be reliable. So I'm pretty sure that we've done a pretty good job of not only enhancing our cameras, but also adding new things for as long as humanly possible as well. Our engineers don't stop trying to create a better camera performance with firmware throughout the life of a camera. Unfortunately, as I said, people, you invested a lot of money in a camera, and I get that. But as a new generation of camera comes through, that is the whole reason why it can do all of these extra things, is because predominantly processing power, but a little bit comes down to sensor performance and that sort of thing as well. So anyway, let's move on from there. Cool. So splash proofing and dust proofing. The dust proofing I actually want to touch on here for a second as well, because our dust reduction system that we've been developing for many, many, many years just continues to get better, and it really, really is market leading, because any camera that you are changing lenses on, you're taking that lens off, you're exposing the sensor or the internals of the camera to dust. The reason why ours performs so well is exactly what you're seeing on the screen here, this mechanism. Now, what this mechanism is actually doing is every time you turn the camera on, it's actually pulsing the sensor inside the camera at 30,000 times, but it's actually creating like a popping sort of mechanism. It's a pushing out. And when it does that, it's actually pushing anything that's on the sensor off. They also continue to make the coating on the front of the sensor super slippery and anti-static. But also there's adhesive strips on the inside of the camera as well. So after it's pushed anything off that was on the sensor, it doesn't keep free floating. It actually gets captured inside the camera as well. So cool. Also, really, really excited that we are continuing on with the OM3 with the BLX1 battery, which we've been using on the OM1 and the OM1 Mark II. So really excited about that. And also USB-C charging and power. So I've actually got my camera hooked up here via HDMI, and I've also got just an Apple power cable going into it as well. So I can charge and I can HDMI out at the same time, which is great for creatives if you're going to be using external recorders and that sort of thing as well. But it also means that you can run the camera for a longer period of time if you're doing things like live composite or time lapse or anything like that. But it also means you can charge on the fly as well. So even if you've only got a couple of batteries and you're going to be out for a couple of days, if you've got yourself like a PD rated power bank, you're going to be able to charge this on the fly, and you're never going to miss a shot because of it. Cool. Accessories, again, fairly familiar with what you guys would have seen with the OM1 series. So the dual battery charger, again, uses the same battery. So that's really cool. There is a change to the wireless remote control, though. So there's actually a new version of the WR1, which is the 2. It does still come with a cable, but one thing to note with the OM3 is that you can't use a 3.5mm jack input onto it because it doesn't have the plug on it. So if you do want to trigger wirelessly, you can either use the Image Share app, which I'm going to talk about in a second, or you can purchase yourself a remote like this, which will give you better range and better reliability and that sort of thing as well. But just something to note. But while we are talking about the app and our workspace program, so very, very pleased to see that both of these were updated last night. So I updated my workspace program on my Mac, and as well as my app on my phone. That was purely for compatibility with the new camera. So if you do have either or both of those things, please make sure you do the update, especially if you are interested in buying the camera. We want to make sure that you've got complete compatibility and also usability with everything once you've got it on there. So quick note there. So better reliability than a cable. So better reliability as in by using the remote versus the OI Share app. Because the OI Share app will be completely dependent on your mobile device's performance, as well as the range to camera and that sort of thing as well. So I hope that makes sense. Cool. Okay, guys. So look, that is our new OM3 in a nutshell. But as I mentioned, we've got a couple of other things that we're going to talk about as well. These are local prices, guys. So I'll put these on here for all the Australian customers. So you can actually buy this body only, or you can buy it as a kit. So you're looking at $31.99 for the body, or you're looking at $37.99 with the beautiful, but still very, very small 12 to 45 f4. And sales of that will start in Australia and New Zealand on the 17th of February. So, but we've also got a really cool pre-order offer as well. So again, depending on the country that you're in, guys, each country is doing something a little bit different. What we're doing here in Australia is a beautiful leather lucky strap. That is embossed with OMSYSTEM OM3, and that's all via redemption as well. So if you purchase in Australia and New Zealand by one of our recommended retailers, you can, in between the 6th and the 28th, you're eligible to get one of these beautiful straps, and you would be mad not to. They're really, really nice. They're thick, they're comfortable, but they're also super, super premium. They're going to last you a really long time as well. So please make sure you get onto that straight away. Okay, now, let's talk lenses. So when we're talking lenses, guys, and I've actually got both of these here. I'll hold them up to my little camera here so you can sort of see them. But as you can see, really, really small, but beautiful, beautiful lenses. Probably the biggest thing that we need to talk about with both of these is, or the biggest change, is weather sealing. So all of our older f1.8 lenses, they weren't weather sealed at all. Now both the 17 and the 25 version 2s, which is both of these, are now completely internally weather sealed. But not sacrificing in image quality. So the actual optical quality, it carries over from the original versions. There has been an update to some of the coatings. So you've also got a fluorine coating on the front element to make that really slippery. For those of you who do use them outdoors a lot, having that fluorine coating on the front element means they're easier to wipe down. And also the water doesn't stick to it as easily either. But what is really cool, and again, I only got these the other day, both of these come with their own little lens hood as well. So the little LH49Bs. So that's included in the package of those when you purchase those as well, which is really cool. So the other physical change that you're seeing on the 25mm is that used to be a plastic outer with glass lenses. That's actually now a complete metal shell as well. So again, it's not just about the internal weather sealing. They've actually changed and updated that the outer shell to make it a lot more premium as well. So both of those, again, available within that same window. But all the same accessories that you will have seen with the first generation are all cross-referenceable and all that sort of thing as well. So quick note here, yes, you are 100% correct. It does not, the 17mm does not have the clutch on it. Now, I haven't had this as an official thing, but this is my thinking on it. In order to guarantee the level of weather sealing that they wanted in the size of lens that they needed to make, that was why the clutch was removed. Now, I'm happy to be told that that's not correct, but I think logically that was the reason for the design change to it as well. So, but the original 25mm didn't have the focus clutch on it, but they do, of course, both still have manual focus rings on them, of course, as you would expect. Okay, next, let's move on to the new 100 to 400mm Mark II. So this one I'm really excited about. I can't wait to get my hands on one of these because I love the version 1. It's a great lens. Optically, it's beautiful. But I think the big change that they've made with this lens is the inclusion of that Sync IS. So just so you guys know, because you may not know this, that the original version had a lens stabilizer in lens, and it talked to the body but to a degree, but not in the full sync like what we have with our 300mm f4, 150 to 400, 150 to 600, that sort of thing. And basically, the upgrade that they've made for this is going to streamline that stabilization process for people, especially if you've used those other lenses. You had to sort of use it slightly differently if you had some of those other ones. But really, really excited that they've made that upgrade. But also, they have made some changes to the dust and splash proofing, as well as added that fluorine coating to the front element as well. So as you would expect, still compatible with all of the MC14 and MC20 teleconverters. So no change there. If you've already got some of those, you'll be able to slot those straight onto the brand new lens. But one thing that I did note on the information for this was that not only has the actual Sync IS enabled the actual baseline stabilization to go up. So you're looking at 7 stops at the wide end and 5.5 stops at the tele end, which again, for the magnification that this lens gives you, is pretty incredible. But also, they've actually advertised 4.5 stops for lens only, because there are obviously lots of people out there that do use alternate brands when it comes to their bodies. So it's brilliant for them to know that they're still going to be able to get really good stabilization from the lens on its own, even if you don't happen to use an Olympus or an OMSYSTEM body. Okay, so that's the lens in a nutshell. This is what I was talking about with that fluorine coating. So having that fluorine coating on there just means everything slides off a lot easier, and it's also a lot easier to clean, especially if we are shooting in some fairly adverse conditions, which is exactly what all of this stuff is designed to do. So like for like, again, the stabilization and the fluorine coating are the two really big changes to this, but they've actually been able to make it 25 grams lighter. Now, the reason why they've been able to do that is the actual tripod collar on this has changed. So I'm going to show you some example shots first, and then I think I've got one more shot of the actual lens itself. This new lens collar is really cool. Instead of sort of unscrewing it from the side where the tripod mount is and then sort of twisting and then sliding it off, you actually undo it at the side and it actually folds itself in half. So it's really easy to take off and obviously really easy to put back on again as well, because I know personally, I don't always like having that tripod collar on there. Some people like to use it as like a little bit of a holding point on the lens. Some people hate it. They'll actually, unscrew it and slide it completely out of the way. With this, you get the best of both worlds really quickly and easily without having to do too much fiddling. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so some example shots. So again, I wanted to put together some beautiful images to show you just what you can do with this. So again, in rain, so obviously that's not going to bother us, but fast moving subjects, especially again at a distance, or something that's a little bit, I suppose, flighty, or a little bit more active, a little bit harder to get standing still. Other things that are obviously a little bit easier because they're big gliding subjects, but also from a field macro point of view, the level of magnification and close focusing that you get with this lens is incredible, and it allows you to be able to do these sorts of things here as well. Okay, so again, all of the existing accessories and everything all carry over to the Mark II, and that is going to be available a little bit later than all of the other equipment. So I think March is when we're looking for this to become available for us. But that is all of my information for everybody this evening, guys. I appreciate I have just downloaded a whole bunch of information on there as well. But I now throw the floor open to all of you guys because, again, everybody's been asking questions as they've gone along. So thank you very much for that. We do appreciate it. And thank you to Stephen. You've done a fantastic job of being able to answer everybody's questions as we go along. But I've got to remember when we do things on YouTube, I'm used to doing everything on Zoom, which is I've got to remember there's probably about a 30-second delay in between when I say something and then when questions will actually start coming in. So guys, if there is anything that we haven't covered, if there's some more information that you would like on what we have discussed this evening, please, by all means, the floor is open to you. I'd love to be able to talk to you about it. So, but just while everybody's having a little think about that, Stephen is going to pop in a little post here with all of the links that you guys are going to need to know. So it's a link to your global website. So wherever you are positioned in the world, it will take you to your local site. There's also that link that I was talking about with all of that houses all of the workshops that are coming up. There we go, Stephen. Thank you very much. Also, for those of you who are in Australia and New Zealand, in Sydney or Melbourne, please check out that link to the 2 physical system days that we're doing coming up in the next few weeks. But also, guys, all of the sessions that have been done by the European and American team on the new camera, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff, are housed on our YouTube channel. So if you don't already follow OMSYSTEM.Cameras on YouTube, the link is right there. Jump in and check out some of the detail that's on there, guys. There's all of there's workshops, there's discussions with our visionaries, there's techniques and tips when it comes to individual cameras and genres. There is a plethora of information there. So please stay up to date with what's going on there. There is definitely always more and more stuff coming through there as well. So. A couple of things that I just saw come through. So. But again, just being double okay, updating the lens. Oh, cool. Yes, Perth or Brisbane? Yes, absolutely, yes. So again, the 2 physical events that we're doing in Sydney and Melbourne, again, they're just the starting points for us. So it's a little bit different. We wanted to do something different, and it wasn't just about the new camera. We actually wanted to engage with our folks, our community, our people a little bit differently compared to what we have done. And so, yeah, look, the response has already been huge for the workshops that we're doing, even for just people knowing about the locations that we've got. So you can come in and have a chat to us, have a chat to myself. I'll be at both of them. Come and test out some of the gear. We're going to have samples of absolutely everything there. So absolutely, yes, we will be rolling this on to our other states in Australia and New Zealand, hopefully very, very soon as well. So please stay tuned to that. And thank you for asking, guys. It means that we've got part of our families in these spaces that we want to be coming and spending time with you guys as well. So much appreciated. That makes me happy. Quick note here from Kev. Okay, can you please provide as working LIN? I'm sorry, Kev. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Please more detail, and happy to respond to that one for you if I could. Otherwise, guys, look, again, we've done pretty well. I'm pretty infamous for going well over time on some of these sorts of sessions once I get a roll on, despite people's opinions. I don't actually like the sound of my own voice, but I promise you that is absolutely true. But I think I just get excited, and when we've got these beautiful new products to talk about and these beautiful new things that we want to get in as many people's hands as soon as possible, you know, it's hard not to be excited. So, okay, cool. All right, easy. From Rick, thank you very much. That's exactly what we want to hear as well. That is the first lie Aaron has told today. Stephen, you're not funny. Can you write a working link to the Oz days? Oh, cool. Sorry, Stephen, we might have a busted link there. If you can please double check that for Kev. Cool, guys. And look, I'll sign off now, guys. Again, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It really has been our pleasure. There is lots more to come, not just around the new OM3, but lots to come from us as a brand. So stay tuned, follow your local socials, follow all of the things that we're doing worldwide, because we want to engage with you guys as often and and also as meaningfully as possible as well. So there's going to be lots of Zoom sessions coming up. The bigger sessions we usually do on YouTube like this. But otherwise, please stay tuned. Oh, hold on, quick note here from Rick. So is there a HDMI port for video side of things? I may have missed that. Absolutely, yes. So yes, Rick, micro HDMI output. And same as with the OM1 Mark II, you can input power via USB-C and output signal via HDMI simultaneously. Cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Look, I'm going to sign off from there. Thank you very much again for all of your time this evening, and really look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. So take care of yourselves. Happy shooting. And hopefully we're going to see an OM3 in lots of people's hands very, very soon. Thanks, guys.